that you must deal with just only those that were issued by Minister Cele?
I didn't. Because I realized that she was obstructing me in chairing the meeting. I asked her that she must talk to General Reid directly and submit whatever she wanted to submit to General Reid, which she did. Later on, I checked after the meeting with Reid. Reid did inform me. I even have one page here with me, which I couldn't, which was missed by mistake when I was scanning the annexures, where she sent a message to Reid that here are the companies, these companies manufacture the PPEs. Please make sure that you buy from them. She even told General Reid that those companies came from the minister. Now, General Reid, because he was frustrated since the PPEs were not available in the market, he went up to an extent of going to the China embassy to seek assistance. How can we obtain the PPEs? He told me that he did send his people to go and check the stock availability. The reason why now he was using that method of doing a due diligence before he even considered the companies is because out of this 140 million that I've just mentioned that we first used in issuing orders to the companies that were on the transversal contract, there was no delivery that was taking place. And we needed PPEs. Now there was no more money available because those orders committed that money.
What did Lieutenant General Reid do?
He sent his people to go do diligence to those companies and they did not find any stock.
We are now at paragraph 26 of your statement.
Okay.
At paragraph 26, you state that Minister Cele berated you for not wanting to buy from the companies. How did this come about? You testified that the instruction was given to Lieutenant General Reid from Lieutenant General Ngwenya. How did you then end up getting involved and being berated by the minister?
Okay. The initial instruction that was given to us and General Reid was that we must centralize all the procurement of PPEs. Now, when National Treasurer gave those companies, General Reid and I realized that the provinces needed PPEs, and there were a lot of complaints, I must say, where members, when they were searching people out there, some people were refusing them to be searched by the police because they were not wearing PPEs. Now, we decided to decentralize and we were busy emailing the letter to decentralization to all business units. General Ngwenya came and took us. We were in a meeting of National Steering Committee for COVID-19, which I co-chaired with General Ngwenya. He dragged us and said, the minister wants you. He took us to the office of the minister. And when we arrived at the office of the minister, we find General Masemola, General Libya, and General Ngwenya was there and the chief of staff. It was myself and General Reid. The minister was very angry with us, shouting at us and saying, we don't want to buy PPE. We're saying there are no PPEs, but Ngwenya is giving us companies. We are not issuing orders. We explained what Reid has done, and I told the minister that we will not be coerced to purchase PPEs just because we wanted PPEs. There are processes that needed to be adhered. We received companies from national treasurers, and those companies we checked, they were not part of those transversal contracts. This is why, amongst others, we couldn't. But if they had PPEs, General Reid was going to follow another process of acquiring those PPEs from those companies. Then there was supposed to be a meeting thereafter. I'm sorry if I can elaborate further.
Yes, you may, but we don't.
Here, I'm just mentioning that she was a DNC responsible for human resource management, but she was later dismissed on a matter that was not even under her responsibility, but she was involved in that particular matter. which was a blue light matter that was under the GNC Asset and Legal Management. In other words, while she was HRM, she was encroaching in my space and doing certain works behind my back.
I see. General, at paragraph 30, you deal with the various, you detail the investigation that you conducted regarding Lieutenant General Jacobs. And can you comment on the outcome of what was the what were you investigating, and what was the outcome of the investigation, and how did Minister Cele become part of this investigation?
During March 2020, Lieutenant General Jacobs purchased the tools of trade or of crime intelligence, which they utilize in their execution of their duties at the value of 120 million, which was coupled with the vehicles where those two tools were going to be installed. Now, I think it was in 2022 at the early, I instituted, because they were not utilized due to the fact that they did not obtain the exemption certificate that was supposed to be obtained. In fact, they should have, after they applied and everything was approved, they should have applied for the exemption certificate before purchasing, but they purchased before.
What were the tools of trade?
It was the interception equipment that they utilize in the crime intelligence environment, the grabber, so referred to as the grabber.
And what were they supposed to have done?
They should have first obtained, after authorization to purchase, they should have stopped there and apply for the exemption certificate, but they purchased and requested exemption certificate later. So the equipment was
Lieutenant General, that section is labeled investigations that you conducted against General Jacobs. When you say they, who are you referring to?
To General Jacobs. I'm referring to General Jacobs.
So he.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when I discovered that those equipment are not being utilized, I was even taken on a tour by the crime intelligence officials when at a situation when I was acting on behalf of General Mfaz. They were gathering dust. So I instituted a fruitless and wasteful expenditure because it was almost 2 years when they bought the equipment and it was not being utilized. Even National Treasurer wrote us a letter in that regard.
Were there any steps taken against Lieutenant General Jacobs for that waste of expenditure?
I was still conducting that investigation when I was suspended.
At paragraph 31, you say in October 2020, you were tasked to investigate the circumstances surrounding the killing of Colonel Charles Kine. What was the outcome of your investigation?
The outcome of that investigation led to Lieutenant General Jacobs and others, not him alone, to be disciplined. There are witnesses that were there in the meeting.
You then state that at paragraph 38, what was your response to General Masemola's insinuation?
I told him that I'm not aware of what he was insinuating, and I also don't want to mix my responsibilities with what he was politicking about, and I will keep those paragraphs as they are because these matters and directives were given to me in an open meeting.
Okay. This suspicion that General Masemola had regarding Deputy Minister Matale's intentions, was there anything to support those allegations?
There was nothing except that he said those things to me.
So in the conversation, did you probe further to ascertain why he was involving politics in a meeting that had to do with contracts and infrastructures? Where was the suspicion coming from?
I told him that I didn't probe further, except that I felt that he threatened me that your stubbornness, because he wanted me to remove that particular sentence that I received a directive from the minister. And he was trying to convince me that by saying that the statement that I must be careful of Mr. Matal, but there was nothing to me that was projected by the deputy M that he had certain interest in the matter, and the task was given to us with the minister, by the minister, with the DM, and the officials that I worked with from supply chain were responsible for facility management.
Okay.
Now,
So,
he threatened, I felt threatened, I didn't further. He said, your stubbornness will cause your career, so be it.
Okay. The information note that you rely on, which you then subsequently submitted, is annexure FNV 11, and that can be found from page 269 of the bundle.
Let me correct it, Honorable Chairperson. It is not, what I attached here is not the information note, because the information note was in the office of the National Commissioner. What I attached is a relevant document of how we engaged in order to arrive at that information note.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are now,
And if I may, if I know you are running for time, if I may, on that very same day when we discussed this with General Masemola, we were at Limpopo, and that was exactly on the same day when we arrived back from that meeting in Limpopo. We had another meeting in the evening until after 9. That's when he informed me that he is under pressure to suspend.
to suspend who?
Me.
Oh, okay. What did you not escalate this with to Commissioner Masemola?
I did not escalate this to Masemola because I knew that Masemola was not going to do anything. Masemola was listening to anything that General Cele said must happen. For example, the explanation I gave earlier on, where Masemola, the minister gives me an instruction in an open meeting, and Masemola comes and say, I must not say it was the minister. So I knew that the same Masemola was not going to help me.
So what must we make of that comment that the National Commissioner instructed you to do something that was not accurate and reflected what happened in the meeting? What do you wish to tell the committee by that statement?
I am saying to the committee that at times as officials, we find ourselves in a very difficult situation. You find yourself working as if you are between the rock and the hard surface. And when you are there alone, you don't know what to do in order to get out of that particular situation.
At paragraph 44, you deal with instructions that were by the CF.
The minister was not happy. Masemola said to me, he told me that.
What was the nature of yours and Masemola's, Commissioner Masemola's working relationship?
My relationship with Masemola has been a very good relationship, I must say. Even before he became the National Commissioner, we had a very good relationship. I remember, if I may, one example, when General Patlane was the acting National Commissioner, General Masemola was the DNC, and I was still a Major General by then. There were certain discussions about me. There are many projects that I led when I was still a Major General. One of the projects that I was leading was the Police Music and Cultural Association in the SAPS. So in their discussions, they will be saying, I'm too autonomous, I'm doing things, etc., on my own, etc. So Masemola will come and tell me and say, hey, be careful when you do these things, brief General Ngwenya, because when we are in our DNC's meeting with the National Commissioner, she doesn't seem to be talking good about you, and we know you're doing a good job. So I regarded Masemola as, even, I must also say, even now, when he suspended me, when I won the case of my case was finalized of the iPad on the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, during June 2023. I went to see Masemola, so to sit down with him to say, my case has been finalized, I want to come back to work. Masemola said he was studying the judgment. Come the following day. The following day I went. He said he was going to have a meeting with the minister. I must wait for him.